Alrighty, so we are now at the meat of this weekend's action, as we are now going to be talking about the 11 games remaining from this weekend's action, where we're going to talk about the 10 games that's going to be happening on Saturday and the one game that's going to be happening on Sunday. And this week for the Saturday game, not only the fact that we have a lot of games, but all 10 of these games are going to be nightcap action. So a little bit of a throwback to last year, where this was the case where there was time where all 13 games were taking place in the nightcap action, and I had to try my best to keep up as many games as possible. And there's times where there's like 7 games that is on at the same time, and on Saturday there is going to be a time where there's going to be 8 games that is going to happen at the same time. Also, this weekend and tomorrow, I am going to be going to that historic first ever home game for the Oakland Roots, and that game is going to kick off around 5:30. So most likely, I am really going to miss the business and of the Saturday action, and that time where there's like 8 games that is going to happen at the same time. And in some ways, I guess that's kind of good, the fact that I do miss those kind of games at that time, because again, 8 games at the same time, there's no way in the world I can keep track of all these games. And I'll try my best when I do come back from that Roots game, especially after that game is over. I'm going to quickly start watching some of the last couple of nightcap action game that happened on Saturday, and also I'll make sure I watch all the highlights of some of these games that is really the business end of the Saturday night action. So we begin with the first game of the business end of the Saturday night action, with FC Cincinnati versus the Colorado Rapids. So this is a rare interleague matchup, where this game is going to start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Actual kickoff time is 7:38 p.m. local time, and this will be first of 4 games that will kick off at the same time. FC Cincinnati has a record of 1-1-4, which means that they are now indeed the team. Well, they're not only indeed, but they've been dead last in the Eastern Conference for these past couple of weeks. Well, for the Colorado Rapids, they have been red hot in these last 5 games with a record of 4-1-2, and have won 4 out of the last 5 games. Now, one thing I forgot to mention yesterday was that even though the international break is technically over, it kind of isn't, because you have also this tournament called the Euros and Copa America that is happening right now, and there are going to be some teams that are still going to miss those players that is participating in those tournaments, because those tournaments, they're still in the group stage. So there are going to be a couple of teams that's going to miss a couple of their starters, though not every team is going to have that problem. In fact, there's actually a lot of teams this weekends where they're probably not going to miss any player that is currently on international duty, or have players that is currently in the Euros or at Copa America. And that is kind of the case for this game, as both teams do not have players that is going to be participating in Copa America and at Euros. So at least both of these teams should not have the excuse of saying, well, we probably lost this game because we had one of our more important player that is currently at the Euros, or even at Copa America. But obviously, when you look at this game, I think Colorado is going to be the favorites coming into this one. I mean, for FC Cincinnati, I will say that, in the last game against New England, even though they did lose that 1-0, I thought they played very well in that game, and they definitely created a lot of chances where they could have easily scored a goal in that one. But that being said, they also gave up a ton of chances to New England too, and that they gave 36 shots to New England in that game. But still, they only lost 1-0 in that one, and if they would have put away some of their chances that they had against New England in the last one, that game could have been different, and they probably could have got a point out of that game. But again, they're facing against a Rapids team that has been red hot in these last couple of weeks, and will fancying themselves to try to get all 3 points again here on the road against FC Cincinnati. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Columbus versus the Chicago Fire. Now, this is definitely one of a couple of games that I think a lot of people will look forward to. In fact, this weekend's action, we do have a lot of marquee game that is going to happen. But this one is kind of one of them, because this is indeed the last ever home game at the historic Crew Stadium, and the last ever home game at the first ever soccer-specific stadium in the U.S., as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time is not until 7:38 p.m. local time. I'm kind of very surprised that for the very last game of the U.S. first ever soccer-specific stadium, and also known as the home of Del Cicero, I'm kind of surprised this is not on national television. I mean, this stadium will always remember for a lot of memorable things, and the fact that they decided to not even have this on national television, I'm kind of a little bit surprised. And also, this won't be the last time I'm gonna say the same thing, because I think there are a couple of games that probably should have been on national television. I mean, there's really technically only one game that is going to be either on Fox or ESPN, or in this case, there's only one national televised game that is going to be on ESPN, and unfortunately, we do have two games that is going to be on Twitter, and it's going to be back to back, which will be the latter part of the nightcap action. But for this one, even though it's not on national television, I think a lot of people will definitely tune in for this one, because again, it's the last ever game for Columbus at the historic Crew Stadium before they open up their new stadium just a couple of weeks from now. Now, players on international duty for both of these teams. For Columbus, they don't have anyone that is on international duty. While for the Chicago Fire, you have two players that is currently one of them is currently at Copa America, and one of them is currently with their national team in the Euros. You got Gaston Jimenez, who is currently with Paraguay in Copa America, and Przemysław Frankowski currently with Poland in the Euros. But even with both of those players that they're going to lose, which are those are two relatively important players to the Chicago Fire team, I still think, even if they had them, I think Columbus is going to be the favorites in this game. I mean, this is just such a big occasion for Columbus, and the only thing I might worry about that is that maybe this occasion might get to the players a little bit, and usually when you have such a big occasion, maybe the moment might be too big for some of these players, but I don't think so. I think these Crew players going to really play this game hard, and they want to give some of their fans, and especially a great sending off in terms of this historic stadium. And yeah, I think they're definitely going to be up for it in this game, and especially when they play against a Fire team that is really struggling this season. I fancy themselves to get all 3 points in this one. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is NYCFC taking on New England, as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time will not start until 7:38 p.m. local time. NYCFC coming with a record of 3-2-2 after they won 2-1 on the road against LAFC, while for New England, they've also been on a bit of a hot streak as they have won 3 in a row and currently at the top of the Eastern Conference with a 5-2-1 record. Also, a small note in terms of this game will still take place at Red Bull Arena, and it seems like NYCFC, in terms of their home venue, they're pretty much using Red Bull Arena kind of like their summer home for now, because obviously with the Yankees, he's still playing at home for a lot of their games, and probably a lot of their games in the summer kind of conflict with NYCFC. You probably know that when that happens, usually it's the Yankees that gets the benefit of the doubt to play at Yankee Stadium, because after all, that stadium is named after them, and they obviously own that stadium, and NYCFC, of course, are paying rent to, unfortunately, their landlord in terms of that one. So for now, they're going to have to play at Red Bull Arena in that game, although, so far in terms of their record at Red Bull Arena, it hasn't been that good. I mean, they play one game at Red Bull Arena, which was against Columbus, and that was a game where they probably could have won 1-0 out of that one if they didn't give up 2 late goals, and if it wasn't for Lucas Zarian just kind of took over and just basically stole all 3 points for Columbus in this game. But, for this one, when they do play against New England, it's going to be another test for them to play a game at Red Bull Arena, and they're going to have to do it without Callens in this game, who's currently with Peru on the Copa, or who's currently with Peru in Copa America, and Callens is definitely a very important player in terms of that defensive end. Now for New England, they don't have anybody that is going to be on international duty, although before there was definitely concern that maybe Buxa would be joining Poland as part of their roster in the Euros, but it seems like that is not going to be the case. So New England is definitely going to be in full strength in this game, and they're also fancy themselves to potentially get a win in this one with that full strength. But as I said, this is a game between two very good teams this season, and something tells me it could be a game where we also know that both of these teams have a lot of attacking power. Both of these teams might score a lot of goals in this game, and the scoreboard could be look a little bit crooked at the end of the game. But one thing I will also say is that maybe that might not be the case, because one thing I'm also seeing in the Eastern Conference this season is that goal scoring, not only I said before, goal scoring tends to be down in the league this season, but especially in the Eastern Conference. Like, there's a lot of teams in the East that is not really score a ton of goals, even though we're now into the 8th game of the season, and most of them have barely even hit the double-digit mark so far this season. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is the game that I kind of talked about a little bit yesterday as the one that we knew this was eventually going to happen. We knew eventually one of these Canadian team is going to be the home team in this game, but they're going to be the home team, and they're going to be playing against the team that they're currently sharing the venue with, and that is Orlando City. Now, I haven't heard anything about whether or not if Orlando City is going to open up the stadium and let fans attend this game, but I'm pretty sure TFC, they're probably telling Orlando that no, we do not want to have fans in the stands in this game, because if they have fans in the stands in this game, most likely it's going to be Orlando City fans that's going to be in the stands, and that Toronto is pretty much not going to be the home team anymore if that is going to be the case. So I think specifically TFC told Orlando that no, we're not going to open up the stands in this game, and therefore this game looks like it's gonna be played behind closed door. I might be wrong though. There might be some last minute kind of notice that they are going to be opening up the stands in this one, but I think specifically for TFC, they're just telling Orlando that no, there's no way we are letting fans in the stands in this game, because as I said, if TFC let fans in the stands in this game, they might as well just act this like it's an away game, because it's just going to be Orlando City fans that's going to be attending this game, and it's basically a free home game for Orlando City in this one. Now, that being said, it is still technically a free home game for Orlando City, because this game is going to be at Exploria Stadium, and it will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:38 p.m. local time. Toronto, of course, lost 2-1 on the road to Columbus in the last match, and their record is now at a dismal 1-2-4 record. Well, for Orlando City, they lost 2-1 to the Red Bulls away, and that was a game that unfortunately they had their unbeaten run come to an end, and now the record is 3-1. Now, players on international duty for both of these teams are going to miss some important players for this game because of international duty. For TFC, they won't have their newly acquired DP Jefferson Saltado in this game because he's currently on international duty with Venezuela in Copa America. While for Orlando City, you got both Galese and Mendez currently with their respective national team in Copa America. Galese, of course, with Peru, and Mendez, I believe he's currently with Ecuador right now in Copa America. So both of these teams are going to miss, as I said, going to miss some star player, but obviously, the good news for Orlando is that even though they're not going to have their starting goalkeeper and also one of their starting midfielder, they're at least going to get Daryl DK back in this game, as I'm assuming he's going to be in the starting 11 in this one, since I've been seeing him training with this Orlando City side. And obviously, I know there's been that debate of how long he's going to stay as an Orlando City player, but as of now, I'm pretty sure Orlando City fans are happy to see DK back into this team, and it can definitely offer much more attacking force to this team that has really struggled to score goals in these last couple of games. Another good news for Orlando City is that they are going to get Nani back in this game. Nani didn't play in the last game because he was actually suspended because of a red card in a game before the one that they played against the New York Red Bulls, and I also talk about how much they really miss Nani in that game, and probably was one of the reasons why they were really struggling in terms of doing anything against the Red Bulls side. So yeah, they're definitely gonna look to trying to maybe act this like an extra home game for them to try to beat TFC. I mean, they already beat them once this season. They already won 1-0 against them just a couple of weeks ago, and for TFC, again, they have a lot of injuries that they've been dealing with, although, we did see Pozuelo started to be back with this team, and, that's definitely great news for TFC, knowing the fact that this is also another team that has a very important player, especially in that number 10 position, that is Pozuelo, and we've seen before where when Pozuelo is not in the starting 11 in this game, this TFC attack does rarely threaten going forward on the attack. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be DC United versus Inter Miami. So you probably have heard of this matchup before. That's because this matchup just happened 3 weeks ago, as this is pretty much the second straight game that both of these teams are going to be facing off against each other, which I think if you're an Inter Miami fan, that is probably something you do not want to hear, because the last time both of these teams met 3 weeks ago, DC, of course, won that one 3-0 against Inter Miami down in Fort Lauderdale, and that helped DC United records now improved to 3-0-5, while Miami, now their record is 2-2-4 because of that loss. This game will also start the same time as the game down in Fort Lauderdale, start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and the actual kickoff time is 8:08 p.m. local time. Player on international duty for both of these teams. For DC United, only Junior Moreno is on international duty for them. I believe he's currently with, which team he was? I think it's Ecuador or Venezuela that he's currently on the national team duty in Copa America. Well, for Miami, they don't have anybody that is currently on international duty. And again, DC United, I know it's always tough to try to beat the same team twice, especially when you are facing them in back-to-back match week. But since this is kind of the situation where it's back-to-back match week, but there's like a 3-week gap in between, maybe this would be a situation where it's long enough for DC United to not have to worry about Inter Miami finding out a plan to kind of stop them and basically they try to get some revenge for a match that they lost a couple of days ago. And also knowing the fact that Inter Miami is definitely going through a rough time right now. And DC, I talk about how they have definitely looked much better there, especially on the attack. And the last game really show what they were really missing with the way that they've been playing this season, which they're just missing the finishing that can really get them to be a decent team. And the fact that they were able to do that, if they can continue to do so, then I really think this team can really get themselves not only on a bit of a winning streak, but also get themselves charged up and get themselves over the red line in the Eastern Conference. Because remember, it doesn't take much for a team in the Eastern Conference to go over the red line, since it seems like there's a bit of a logjam that is going on in the Eastern Conference, and that between, I think, 2nd through 10th play, there's only like a 4-point gap in between. And it's also the same case with the Western Conference too, where between 3rd place and all the way down to 10th place, there's also kind of like around a 5-point gap. And depending on if you go on a little bit of a run and other team around you kind of struggle, you can definitely find yourself jumping up in the table in no time. And it's also kind of the beauty of why we're still in the early part of the season, where this is always going to happen in the early part of the season, where teams are still going to be very close together, and that it doesn't take much for you to either get on a winning streak or a losing streak, where you can definitely move yourself either on the upper part of the standing, or worse, drop the lower part of the standings and fall out of the playoff spot. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, and the last match on this board, is FC Dallas versus Minnesota United. So this game will start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time will be 7:38 p.m. local time. Dallas, of course, they are struggling this season with a record of 1-3-3. In fact, they're winless in their last 4 games. And I would also kind of say that this game is kind of like the struggling derby, and in some way maybe the desperation derby, because both of these teams are at the bottom of the Western Conference. Although Minnesota, despite the fact that they are second bottom of the Western Conference, they have got a lot better after the horrid start that they had to this season, where they went 0-4 to start the season, and they have been unbeaten ever since, after drawing 1-1 against RSL to improve their record to 2-1-4. Now, unfortunately for Minnesota, the bad news for the Loons coming into this game is that they have a lot of players missing on international duty during the Euros. In fact, I think the Loons are the hardest hit team in terms of players that is on international duty, and that players are going to go to the Euros, and they're going to be missing some action, as both Robin Löw, Yuko Raitala, and Jan Gregush all are missing in this game, because they're with their respective national team during the Euros. Well, for FC Dallas, they also have a player that is not going to be available because of the Euros, and that is one of their new signings, Shun, who is currently with the Hungarian national team during the Euros. So yeah, for again, this is kind of a game where it's a bit of a desperation derby, but in some way it's kind of a desperation derby more for FC Dallas, knowing the fact that the Loons are going to be a little bit shorthanded coming into this game, and you've been really struggling this season, and you just cannot afford to drop more home points this year. You fancy that they have to win this game if they do not want this to be kind of a lost cause season. And for Minnesota, I mean, I'm definitely you might think I'm confident coming into this game against Dallas, but again, looking at the players that is out on international duty and knowing the fact that the Loons do not have a good record on the road this season, I don't know. I mean, I'll be happy if they can get a point out of this game, and I know that might sounds like I'm not being too kind of optimistic, because you would think that I would expect them to win this game because they're literally facing the worst team in the Western Conference. But because of the players that is out for international duty, and there's also still uncertain whether or not if Reynoso is going to be in the starting 11. I'm assuming he's going to be in the starting 11 because he might have picked up a knock that was the reason why he didn't play in that RSL game, and it might have been just a small knock where it's been 3 weeks since that game has happened. He should be fully recover in this one. But yeah, we shall see who exactly is going to win this game, and whoever wins this game, it will definitely, they might feel a little bit better about themselves that is sitting there at the bottom of the Western Conference. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 5 games that is going to be happening from this weekend's action. So, as I mentioned earlier, this week we have a team that is playing their last ever home game at their historic dig, but we also have a team that is playing their first ever game in their new dig, and that team is Austin FC. And by the way, I am wearing the Verde to honor Austin FC finally playing their first ever home game in club history and playing their first ever home game at Q2 Stadium. And for their first ever home game, they're going to be playing against the San Jose Earthquakes at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and the actual kickoff will be 8:08 p.m. local time. And also, this game is going to be televised nationally, although unfortunately, it's going to be televised nationally in a way that I'm pretty sure you guys would not like to see, because this game is going to be on Univision, and unfortunately, it's going to be on Twitter. And what's even more unfortunate, this is not the first Twitter game that is going to happen this week. As we're going to talk about just 2 hours later, we unfortunately will have to suffer another Twitter stream that is going to happen, and will be one of the coverage of one of these games from this weekend's action. But for this historic first ever home game for Austin FC, their first ever opponent that they're going to be playing at Q2 Stadium will be the struggling San Jose Earthquakes team, who have lost 4 games in a row, and their record is now 3-0-5. While Austin FC, after enduring that marathon 8-game road trip to start the season, they do have a relatively respectable record of 2-2-4 throughout their first 8 games. I mean, I talked about earlier before this season where, with this long stretch to start the season, if Austin can potentially get themselves still either close to being above the red line, or even at the best case scenario above the red line right now, they can really set up the table for a relatively good chance of making the playoffs. And knowing the fact that even though they're sitting, I believe, in 11th or 11th place right now in the Western Conference, they're not that far away from potentially moving above the red line right now. And again, because they have a lot of home games for the remaining of the season, they can definitely hope that they can make Q2 Stadium a fortress, and they can really start making a big second half resurgence to get themselves above the red line. But in order to do that, they need to first prove that Q2 Stadium is indeed a fortress as they play against the Quakes. And also for the players on international duty for Austin FC, the good news is there's going to be nobody on their team that's going to miss this special occasion because of international duty, although there are unfortunately a couple of players will miss this special occasion because of injury. Well, for the Quakes, you got Marcos Lopez as the only player that is missing for this game because of international duty, and that's not really that bad of a loss for the Quakes, because I'm believe Lucho Abeques will be slotting into his spot, and Lopez, at least throughout the season, he's kind of not really a regular starter for this team, so I don't think that's as big of a loss for the Quakes in this one. But for the Quakes, as I mentioned before, I talked about how Austin FC is after enduring their first 8 games on the road, they finally get a chance to play at home. Well, for the Quakes, it's the complete opposite. After being pretty much at home almost every single week, they now have the daunting task to start a road stretch where they're going to be on the road pretty much every single week, and they're going to be on the road 6 of their next 7 games. And I want to hope that maybe the Quakes can spoil the party in this game and maybe do what Miami did to FC Cincinnati earlier this year, where Miami was able to win the game against Cincinnati, playing their first ever home game at TQL Stadium, and also Miami become one of the rare teams to able to be that rude party pooper in terms of a team opening up their first ever home stadium. But something tells me that probably is not going to happen, because again, I just have no faith in terms of this Quakes team. And my only faith I would have with this team is that maybe this 3-week stretch will get the teams back to a winning mindset, and maybe they can be a little bit recharged after just a horrid stretch that they've been going through in the month of May. But knowing Austin FC and knowing a lot of these players, they've been waiting for this moment, and even their fans have been waiting for this moment. Like, I guarantee you, in that game, there's going to be 20,500 strong in that game, and they are going to be very loud in that game and be definitely trying their best to get their team over the line and get their 3rd win of the season. So yeah, I just think that this is a game that it would be kind of a miracle for the Quakes to get a win out of this game, or even get a point out of this game too. And not to mention, the Quakes also a team that does not do on the road historically, and don't look at that game that they won against RSL earlier this season think that maybe things have changed. No, I still think this is not a good road team, and this is going to be one of their toughest road game, playing against a team that have a very special occasion, and they'll definitely be very up for it for this one. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Galaxy versus Seattle Sounders. So this game will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time, but the actual kickoff time will not start until 6:08 p.m. local time. And this game is not going to be on national television, which, again, I'm kind of surprised that this one is not on national television, because usually when the Galaxy play against the Sounders, whether it's at Lumen's Field or at Dignity Health Sports Park, usually this game is on national television. But that's not the case for this one, even though this is a matchup between the top 3 team in the Western Conference. The Galaxy, of course, they won 1-0 against the Quakes at home, while the Sounders, they're the only team in the Western Conference to yet to be beaten. And like what I said yesterday, where Nashville SC might have a daunting task to try to keep their unbeaten run going, as they're going to playing against the Red Bulls a little bit later tonight. Seattle will also have a bit of a daunting task to go to Dignity Health Sports Park, where the Galaxy have remain perfect this season, where they not only have not drawn a game this season at home, but they have yet to lose a game at home this season. Player on international duty for both of these teams. For the Galaxy, there's nobody on their team that is missing on international duty. Well, for the Sounders, they only have Arriaga that's going to be missing on international duty. Arriaga currently, I think, is with Ecuador right now, with their team in Copa America. So, that might be a little bit of a dent to that Sounders backline, but I'm pretty sure a good backup for Arriaga is going to be Shane O'Neill that's going to slot into that role. And it could have also been worse for the Sounders in terms of players missing on international duty. Like, they could have easily have Rui Diaz not available for this game, as, somehow, in some way, Rui Diaz wasn't able to made into the Peru roster for Copa America. But I'm pretty sure if you're a Sounders fan, and especially for the Sounders, they'll take that kind of gift, and that they can, of course, still have their most threatened goal scorer coming into this game. But like I said, they're playing against a Galaxy team that I'm pretty sure they haven't forgotten that 3-0 loss that they took against the Sounders just a couple weeks ago, and they're definitely going to make this a much more interesting matchup, and they're definitely looking for some revenge in this game against the Sounders a couple earlier this season. But now moving on into the next match on this board is another game that I feel like should have been on national television, which is the Portland Timbers versus Sporting KC. Because again, this is a matchup between two teams that is very good. Well, I know the Timbers are currently in 7th in the Western Conference, but they're a team that, you, even as depleted as they are, they're still showing that they can definitely hang with anybody else and can still get all three points despite they're depleted. And Sporting KC have definitely been on a hot streak lately, although they did drew 1-1 against Austin just last week. Well, the Timbers, of course, they lost 3-0 to the Union on the road, and their record is 3-0-4, while Sporting KC have a record of 5-2-2, and they're currently second in the Western Conference. I believe they're 3 points behind the Seattle Sounders right now in the standings. And this game will start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:38 p.m. local time. Player on international duty for both of these teams. Well, for the Timbers, they're going to miss a couple of guys on the attack, with Felipe Mora and Jimmy Chara not available for their team, because both of those players are currently with their respective national team in Copa America. While for Sporting KC, they're thankfully spare in terms of players missing on international duty, and it's unlike last week where they did had a couple of players that were missing on international duty. Well, the most recognizable one is Alan Pulido, who was not available in the last game because of international duty, but now he is available in this game. And knowing the fact that the Timbers once again are going to be shorthanded, which I'm pretty sure Timbers fans are used to it now. I mean, their team has been pretty much playing shorthanded ever since that injury crisis that they started to have back in April. And like I said, even though they are going through an injury crisis and now having players missing on international duty, I'm not going to count out the Timbers in this game, because they have shown some resiliency and kind of almost have that next man up mentality where, oh, one of our main starter is missing. Well, next man up. Next man will be just as good as the one that we're going to be missed for a couple of weeks. And their hope that they can have that same mentality in this game against a Sporting KC side that, like I said, this is a relatively hot team, and especially they're also trying to make amends of what happened last week, where they'll be very frustrated that they drew 1-1 against Austin FC, despite the fact that for the majority of the game they were all over Austin FC and was peppering them in front of goal. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is LAFC versus the Houston Dynamo. So this indeed will be the last game of the busy Saturday night action, and it will be the latest kickoff we will have this season, with this game kicking off at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time, and the actual kickoff of this game will be 8:08 p.m. local time. And this is the other game that's going to be on Twitter and is going to be on 2DN. Now, LAFC, they unfortunately are struggling right now, as they lost 2-1 at home against NYCFC to drop their record to 2-3. While the Houston Dynamo, despite the fact that they're off to a relatively good start this season, that's not been the case on the road. I mean, they have really struggled this season on the road. They're still searching for their first points on the road this season. Players on international duty, the only player that is on international duty for LAFC is Diego Palacio, who's currently on international duty with Ecuador in Copa America. While for the Dynamo, there's no player that is on international duty for them. And again, this might be also another game where this is kind of similar to what I said with LAFC when they play against Colorado, with how much they have been struggling this season, and that they're really coming off with just a heartbreaking loss against NYCFC just a couple of weeks ago. You sense that they are looking to try to get all 3 points, and especially you would say that they have to get all 3 points in this game, because they're playing a team that have yet to get anything out of this game. And if LAFC does not able to get 3 points out of this game, then I think there is definitely rightly concern right now. Well, actually, there's already concern, I think, within the LAFC fan base of how slow this team has got off to this season. But one thing at least LAFC have been doing well this season is that they've been able to beat the team that they should be able to beat. So I'm assuming that's going to stay the same in this game against the Dynamo. But if they aren't able to do so, then I think that there's got to be even more concern with this team, because now not only the fact that this team struggled to play against teams that are going to be teams that they might have to face in the playoffs, or at least similar level kind of playoff team. But now they're going to be they're now struggling against teams that they should be beaten. That's when the red flag does really start to go even more with this one. But now moving on into the last game on this board, and the only Sunday game that is going to be taking place this weekend is the rematch of the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal matchup between Atlanta United versus the Philadelphia Union, as this game will start at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, but the actual kickoff will not start until 2:13 p.m. local time, and I believe this game is going to be on ESPN. Atlanta, of course, they drew 2-2 in their last match against Nashville at home, and their record is at 2-4-1. While the Union, they won 3-0 against the Timbers at home, and their record is 4-2-2. Now, both of these teams are going to be missing a couple of key guys during international duty, and probably for Atlanta, they're going to lose probably the most important player on this team, that is Joseph Martinez, who, I heard Joseph Martinez might have contracted COVID during his time with the Venezuelan national team down in Copa America, so maybe not only he's not going to be back for until the tournament is over, but depending on the rules right now in terms of him coming back in quarantine, it could take a little bit longer than that. But the other guys that is not going to be available for Atlanta in this game because of international duty is Ronald Hernandez. For the Union, they also have a Martinez that is gonna be out for this game on international duty, and that is Jose Martinez. And just like Atlanta, Jose Martinez also means a lot to this Union team, and you could maybe even argue he is the most important player for this Union team, especially in that midfield, because he really kind of control that midfield and kind of boss that midfield position for this Union team. And you've seen this season, when Jose Martinez is not available for the Union, they do look a little bit lackluster in terms of that spot. And the other guy that is not going to be available in this game is Guzde, who is currently with the Hungarian national team in the Euros. But yeah, with both of these teams are missing players on international duty, we'll see how much of an impact it will have in terms of this game. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one, because if we're going to get something similar to what we saw in the CONCACAF Champions League, and especially what we saw in those two-leg affair, I'm going to say this is going to be a very good game. Now I don't think we're going to see something similar to this that in the CONCACAF Champions League, and it's going to happen in this one, because the difference between that game and this one is that this one is just a regular season game. That game was a knockout round game and kind of like a playoff game in the CONCACAF Champions League. And when you have that kind of environment and the stake is really at its highest, then it's not a big surprise where that game was very intense. And I do fear that because of the fact this is just a regular season game, and that really this game doesn't really mean as much as what we saw the first two time both of these teams play in the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal. Maybe this game will be a little bit dull, but that being said, I hope that might not be the case, because I'm definitely looking forward to this game. And both of these teams have not forgot each other. Like, when you have already played two times this season, and especially play two times relatively early into the season, I won't be surprised we might see some shithousery kind of thing happen in this one too. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all these 11 games that's going to be happening tomorrow and also on Sunday. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 11 games, and let me know in the comments below also your prediction for all 11 of these games. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next time.